Listen-only mode.
Welcome, everybody. This is our fourth webinar designed to help businesses work smarter and more efficiently with their office management software. Today, we will look at the features of both QuickBooks Desktop and Intuit Online Payroll options so you can decide which one does it pay to go with for your business. To better answer any questions you may have about both options, please type any questions you may have during the webinar, and our panelists will answer them after the presentation in writing. We'll send all participants all the questions and answers within the next few days.
Most businesses think the only choices they have regarding payroll management is paying employees by cash or direct deposit. But there are a variety of ways to manage your payroll, and the best option should be made based on which is right for you, your business, and your skill set.
And if you are thinking of using a payroll software product or subscription, you need to identify which payroll method is right for your business. Today, we will discuss overall payroll reporting, show examples of reports from each method, and provide some generic pricing information.
Great. Let's start by welcoming our panelists today. Joining us are Kimberly Shannon, President of Offsite Business Services, and Nancy Smith, President of Sunburst Software Solutions. Ladies, thank you for your time today. So Nancy, let's start by looking at QuickBooks Windows Desktop.
Thanks, Gary. When knowing which payroll option is right for your business is often a hard decision, especially when you use QuickBooks Desktop, because you do have options. You get to choose from basic payroll subscription, where you run the payroll and make your tax payments, but someone else does your quarterlies, your W-2s, and your 1099s at the end of the year. Next, we have an enhanced subscription, where you do it all. You run your payroll, make your tax payments, you do your quarterlies, W-2s and 1099s at the end of the year. The plus side with enhanced payroll is Intuit provides you with all the forms that you need to do these quarterlies and year-end filings. Lastly, we have assisted payroll. You run the payroll, you submit the data to Intuit, they'll pay your taxes, they'll do your quarterlies and your W-2s. But again, you have to choose the right option for not only your business, but the skill set of the person who runs your payroll. We're going to look at each of these options in detail. First, we'll start with basic. Features of basic payroll include you run the payroll within QuickBooks. So all that payroll data is going to become part of your QuickBooks data file. You pay your employees via check or direct deposit. You can also pay 1099 contractors or subcontractors with a check or through direct deposit. You enter time in the weekly timesheet. A big bonus of this is all your payroll can be job costed. Payroll can also be tracked by class. Employees can view their paychecks online. You make all the tax payments, but then you give a copy of your QuickBooks file or you run reports and give them to your CPA, and they'll do your quarterlies, your W-2s, and your 1099s. This is a really good option for somebody who just wants to make sure that employees are paid correctly, on time, and your taxes get made correctly. But you really don't want to do all the other junk. Next, we'll talk about enhanced payroll. Again, the payroll portion lives directly in your QuickBooks file. You can pay your employees via check or direct deposit, pay 1099 contractors with a check or direct deposit. Again, you'll enter the time in the weekly timesheet. Again, payroll can be job costed. To me, that's like one of the biggest benefits of doing your own payroll within QuickBooks. You can break out payroll by class. Again, employees can view their paychecks online. Your payroll taxes can be paid via check or e-file where available. Most all of the federal, state, and local payroll tax forms are included, so you can do your own quarterlies, as well as you can prepare your W-2s and 1099s at the end of the year. This is usually a really good option for people who have had previous payroll experience. Next, we're going to look at assisted. Now, assisted payroll, it's the best of both worlds. You're going to run your payroll within QuickBooks. All the other things that are in basic, pay your employees via check or direct deposit, pay 1099 contractors via check only. You enter the time within the QuickBooks weekly timesheet function. Your payroll's job costed. It can be tracked by class. Employees can view their paychecks online. But with assisted payroll, you have a dedicated team of payroll reps from Intuit who will help you get up and running. Intuit will pay your payroll taxes. They'll prepare your federal, state, and local payroll tax forms. They'll do your W-2s, your 1099, you do your 1099s, and Intuit will promise a no penalty guarantee. Now, there is a stipulation. You have to submit that payroll data. It's usually 2 days before you actually want the check dated. And that gives Intuit enough time to get everything out to, direct deposit and all that other stuff. This is a really good option if you don't have a CPA or if you've come from ADP or Paychex and you're used to having someone else take care of most of the dirty work for you. So next, all of these options or all of these items are included with the desktop payroll option. You get detailed check stubs. You get detailed payroll reports showing wages, deductions, company contributions, employer and employee payroll taxes. There's support for multiple payroll wage item types. You can have 25 different payroll wage items in QuickBooks Pro and Premier. And if you use QuickBooks Enterprise, you can have 100 different ones. Now, this is a really important piece, especially if you're a contractor and you work on prevailing wage jobs where every job could have a different rate of pay. You can create very centric payroll items and keep them in the employee records with the correct rates of pay. You also have the option for sick and vacation accruals. You can set up workers' comp tracking in QuickBooks and get workers' comp reports. There's support for company contribution tracking, including union fringe benefits. Plus, you can calculate and track multiple employee deductions, child support, union dues, 401k contributions, etc. Next. When you run payroll in the QuickBooks desktop version, there's an employee center, and each employee is going to have their own employee record. And in that employee record, there's different tabs where you're going to set up and enter different types of information about that employee. For example, on the personal tab, you just have basic, who the employee is, what their social security number is, date of birth, etc. There's going to be an address and contact tab where you can actually put in, emergency contacts for those employees. There's a payroll info tab, an employment info tab, where you can track like when the employee was hired, and there's also a workers' comp tab. Next. When it comes time to enter time, you simply go into the QuickBooks weekly timesheet, and then line by line you break out the customer and job that the employee was working on, the service item, that's really important for job costing, and then the payroll item that they're going to be paid under. And then you can set up and choose your workers' comp codes. And then you simply enter the number of hours that they worked each job on that, or each day on that specific job. And you can see here on my screenshot, this employee has worked 2 different jobs, 2 different service items. He's been paid under the same payroll item, but he has 20 hours at each job. You can also choose whether or not this time is billable off to your customers. So it's a really great tool if you do time and materials billing. You just check that little box where it says billable. If you're not going to pass through that time onto a customer invoice, you would leave this unchecked or blank. Next. When it comes time to run payroll, you go into the payroll center. Hopefully you have set up a payroll schedule, and you just simply hit the Start Scheduled Payroll button. Next. When it comes time to pay liabilities, one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you set up a schedule for each of those different payroll liabilities, whether it's a company contribution, like union dues, or it's an employee deduction like child support. And then all of those items that you need to pay to a third party on behalf of that employee comes up in this Pay Taxes and Other Liabilities screen. It also tells you, when you need to pay them by, if they're overdue or if they're upcoming, and you just select whatever you need to pay and click the View and Pay button, and everything just pops right over into a liability check, and you just submit it. Next. You can also fill out your forms. So here we have all the different payroll quarterly forms. Everything's been set up so that you know how often they need to be filed, and you just select which one you need to run. So for example, if you needed to do your federal 941, you'd do that, you'd select the quarterly form 941. And you have to be careful because QuickBooks pulls them all in there. So you have one 941 that's for reporting agents, and you have 194 form 941 that you as the employer would actually do. You can filter out the ones that you don't need and keep just the ones that you do in order to keep this list clean. And then you just select it, you hit create forms, and poof, you know, that form's ready for you to print and mail, or you can actually e-file it where e-file is available, and if you signed up for it. And next. As far as reporting goes, and I realize this is kind of a hard report to see, but this is the QuickBooks Payroll Summary Report. And everything is going to be listed here. It's going to have columns across the top for each of your different employees, and then the column to the far left is going to show gross pay, what payroll item they were paid under, how many hours they worked, the rate, and then what the total wages were for under that payroll item. It's going to show taxes withheld, deductions from net pay, and then employer taxes and contributions. So you get a really nice overview of everything that happened within payroll. Next. Now, there's a whole bunch of reports that are available in QuickBooks Desktop. And obviously, you have your payroll summary, which we just saw. You have a payroll item detail, a payroll detail review, employee earnings summary. You have some reports that will help you manually fill out payroll tax forms if you choose to do it that way and not spend the extra money for enhanced. You have your payroll transaction detail, payroll liability balances, which is very handy. Then you can get, if you've turned on workers' comp, you can get workers' comp summaries, workers' comp by code and employee, workers' comp by job summary, employee withholding report, and then of course you can get your paid time off list. Next. You can even get more reports, and these are all exported into Excel. The summarized payroll data in Excel is an absolutely awesome report. It gives you actually like an employee journal or like a check register for payroll. You can get a payroll summary by tax tracking type. So if you wanted to look at just say state withholding, what payroll items or what wages are subject to state withholding, you could run that report. Employee time and costs, again, that's broken out by job. You can get their sick and vacation history. You can get a direct deposit listing for each employee. You can get your tax form worksheets. And then, of course, Intuit has offered a alternate or substitute certified payroll report that can be done in Excel. Next. The best thing is all of your payroll costs are included in your job costing report. On the left side of the screen, I have a job estimate versus actual report. I've kind of circled the site labor, and if you double click on the amount in the actual cost column, which is that $15,708.71, you can see it's going to open up another report, which is called a zoom, and then if you customize it a little bit like I've done here, you can see employee by employee the amounts that have been assigned to that job costing report. So if you look at the screenshot on the right, the first thing that you see is the payroll item, and that's called laborer. That's the hourly wage. Quantity is 12, which is number of hours worked. Then the next several items the laborer H&W, laborer vacation taxable, laborer holiday, those are all union fringe benefits. And you can see the dollar amounts that were assigned to that job. You can also see where I've set up some, I wanted to track general liability insurance, and I made that part of payroll. And we can see how much general liability insurance was assigned to that employee and job. So this is really important for any business that needs to job cost employee payroll, service business, contractors definitely. Anytime where you need to know how much it costs in labor to do a task for a customer or a job costing is crucial. And this is probably one of the best features that I think comes along in the desktop version. Next. When it comes to 1099 and subcontractors, well, QuickBooks is kind of different in the respect that in your vendor list, you have everybody that you write a check to. So it's going to be both normal vendors like the light company, the telephone company, as well as your subcontractors. They're all going to be in one big list. But you can quickly identify a subcontractor. And you do that by going into the vendor record, going to the tax settings tab, and you enter the vendor ID number, and you indicate that this vendor is eligible for a 1099. Next. Now, this screenshot is from the Premier Accountant Edition. All the versions, Pro and Premier, are going to have a vendor type column or option, and that you can set up different vendor types. Like I have a vendor type called 1099 contractor, and under that I have subtypes that indicate the type of subcontractor they are. So this particular vendor is a paving contractor 1099. In Premier Contractor Edition, there are actually built-in blocks where you can track the expiration date of that vendor's or subcontractor's workers' compensation. So you can track when that expires. In all other versions, you can actually hit that Define Fields button, and you can track and set up custom fields to track workers' comp expiration dates, perhaps track when a resale certificate expires, and when the general liability insurance for that subcontractor will expire. Next. And then at the end of the year, you can do your 1099 reporting. There's a 1099 wizard you can review, where you can review all the 1099 vendors and make sure that you didn't miss anybody. There's also a 1099 summary, a 1099 detail, and then you can actually print or e-file the 1099s. Now again, this is probably for somebody who's done payroll before, or has a really, really good understanding of all the rules, regulations, and requirements that go into 1099 and W-2 reporting. Next.
Well, that's it, Nancy, on QuickBooks Desktop. So thank you very much for that. So I'd like to ask Kim now to tell us a little bit about the other option for payroll management.
Thanks, Gary. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to cover the Intuit's online payroll this afternoon. Intuit Online Payroll offers businesses a payroll option that integrates with both desktop and online versions of QuickBooks. You can run payroll from your computer or mobile device, and this is a great option for business owners who are frequently out of the office and need to run payroll. It can be used by itself or with QuickBooks Desktop or online, Quicken, Microsoft Money, Peachtree, and more. It also integrates with both QuickBooks Desktop and Online for class tracking and job costing, as well as location tracking for QuickBooks Online. On the next slide, I'll cover what's included. Just like with QuickBooks Desktop, you can pay employees by direct deposit with detailed pay stubs and paychecks. Intuit Online Payroll offers a wide variety of pay types, and I think it's about 21. It keeps track of sick, vacation, and holiday pay accruals, federal, state, and local tax calculations, voluntary deduction calculations such as health insurance premiums, garnishments, and 401k deductions. Employees can access their pay stubs online. You can also pay contractors through them, and you can actually filter it, which is a little different in the desktop version, so that you only pay your 1099 contractors through here. So it's a little easier to keep track of them at the end of the year. Then one of the things I really like about the online version is that they send out email reminders for each payday when tax deposits are due, and they also send reminders when your payroll tax returns are due. So they keep you really on top of it so you don't forget. The online version also offers 3 levels of service like the desktop version, and that'll be shown on the next slide. Oops, Gary, you got ahead of me. The 3 levels of service are similar to the QuickBooks Desktop: basic, enhanced, and full service. Each level of service depends on how involved you want to be in handling your payroll. The next slide will cover what's included in the basic service. It's very similar to the desktop version. The basic payroll service you enter your time, they take care of the paychecks and calculations. Intuit has free online support available via live chat, email, or telephone. Email generally, they say, takes about 3 to 4 days for them to get back to you. So if your issue is urgent, you're better off doing a live chat or phone. But I have emailed them, and they generally do get back to you quicker than that time. There are no tax forms included with this either. So basically, like the desktop version, you have to create reports to prepare your returns and W-2s and either print them out for yourself to do them or pass them off to your CPA. One difference between the online and desktop versions is that the online version works with or without QuickBooks. So you really don't have to use QuickBooks to use the service. And now we'll go on to what's included in the enhanced service. The enhanced service is really the most popular service within Intuit right now, and it includes everything in the basic service: the paycheck calculations, the tax calculations, and the free support. It also allows you to electronically pay and file taxes, including W-2s at year end. It does include the payroll tax forms for the federal and state governments if you want to print them out and send them in yourself, or print the W-2s for your employees. And with this service, federal payroll taxes can be e-filed and e-paid, and you can also do that in states where it's available. Next slide. Full service payroll is great for the business owner who wants to be hands off of everything and put everything into Intuit's hands. Full service payroll includes everything in the basic and enhanced services. The payroll taxes are filed and paid for you. And with this service, there's no prepayment of taxes. So if you use a service like ADP or Paychecks, you probably know that when your payrolls run, they take out your taxes the same day as the payroll, and they may not be due for quite some time. But with the full service payroll, the taxes are only paid when they're due. And like the desktop version, the full service version gives you a guarantee with no penalties. And like Nancy said, as long as you get your information filed on time. And for me, I think this is a big plus for a lot of business owners, because almost 1/3 of all employers who process payroll in-house have paid penalties at one time or another. The payroll setup is completed for you. So if you're new to the online payroll or you're switching from some kind of a payroll service, this can really help you out and get you up and running a lot more quicker. It also does include free year-end W-2 forms. The navigation of online payroll is quite a bit different than the desktop version. So the next few slides, I'm going to just give you a feel of how it looks and feels. I'm going to start out with the Employee tab, and this basically just kind of gives you an overview of your employees. So you can see that you have the employee name. You can readily see whether they're salaried or hourly. So the first two employees are salaried employees. You can see the pay schedules. So if you have a couple of different pay schedules, obviously there would be different types of pay schedules in there. You can quickly see which employees are paid by direct deposit or paycheck. And you can actually filter this so that you can show all of your employees, just the active ones, terminated ones. There's a lot of different options how to filter this. And you can also add employees right here in this section. And then it also shows your active contractors. So if you're paying your 1099 contractors through here, that would show up as well. And another nice thing about this online version is that you can, if you hire a new employee, you can actually print a blank packet of forms to give your employees. But when you click on this option at the bottom of this page, it does only give you the federal form. So it would be your federal W-4 and your I-9. But to get to the state forms, you would click on the Taxes and Forms tab and go to the Employees section there, and then that would give you all of the forms, the federal, the state, any local forms that would be necessary to give to a new employee. But then you basically have everything right there and you don't have to go looking for it. Next slide. So when you're ready to process your payroll, you click on the Payday tab, and the first screen that will come up will be Create Paychecks. And there's a drop-down menu there. In this example, we're creating regular paychecks, but you can also print bonus checks, commission checks, or fringe benefit adjustment checks. And this is going to be for a weekly pay cycle, so you've got your pay period in there, the pay date. Over to the left, you can check or uncheck any employees that need to be paid or select all. But for example, if Carrie didn't have any hours for this pay period, you could just uncheck her so that you wouldn't generate a paycheck. Salaried hours people, you don't have to worry about entering anything, but you can enter the sick and vacation hours so that that works into the accrual. For Carrie, you would enter her hours, any overtime she works, sick pay, vacation pay. And then under the check details, for each employee, you can click on that link, and it will bring up the details of that paycheck for each employee. And if you need to make any specific adjustments one time for that check, you can go in and do it there, and then it will just be a one-time thing, and it will take care of it on this payroll. Now, there's a Create Paychecks tab down there, and by clicking that, it'll take you to the next screen, but you can still make changes on the next screen. Just because you create them, this isn't the last time that you can make changes. So if you want to click on the Create Paychecks tab, it'll take you to the Approve Paychecks screen. And this is where you have an opportunity to go in and review the payroll that you've entered. So in this example, we have all three employees. They've worked 40 hours this week. You have their total pay, the net pay, and then you can see there's a pop-up screen that pops up under the net pay that tells you to make sure that the total net pay is in your bank account so that your employees can cash their checks and the direct deposit can be processed. So you want to make sure that that amount is included, as well as the total taxes in the next column, which is the 808.29. So both of those amounts need to be into your account where your payroll is pulled from, so that you make sure that everything gets paid. And then the next column, you can see that we have two people with direct deposit, and one you're going to be printing a hard check. The view and edit links are where you have the opportunity to go in and review the details of each paycheck, review the taxes, the deductions, and if you need to make any changes, you can go in and make the edits there. And then you can also, if you have an employee that maybe wants a hard check this time instead of a direct deposit, you can go in and unclick the direct deposit so that employee can get a hard check on this payroll. Now, if you've created this whole payroll by mistake, there's a link down there that allows you to just undo all of the checks and start over. And I think that is kind of helpful sometimes when you need to go back and start everything. But when you click the approved paychecks, this is one thing you do have to know about the online payroll version. With the desktop version, you can go in, and if you've created the paychecks and the direct deposit's been sent, you can actually go back in and void any checks and resend it to Intuit and then redo the checks as long as you've done it in time, and then redo the payroll. On the online version, once you hit the approved paychecks button, you can't go back and undo it. You have to actually go in and call Intuit so that they can undo the payroll for you. So that is one difference that you do have to remember, is that there is no way in the online version to go in and undo a payroll once you've hit the approve button. But once you've done that, then you can go to the print option. So after you've created the paychecks and you've approved the paychecks, then you're at the view print option. So you can go in and view the checks. You can print your hard checks out. If you're still giving your employees, a zero check for their direct deposit, you can print it out here, or you can just uncheck them and only print the hard checks. Next slide. The to-do list is a really good feature, and this is actually the screen that pops up when you first log in. And this gives you a list of things that are outstanding that you need to address within the program. In this example, it actually starts out with asking you if you need to file 1099 miscellaneous forms, and it lets you know the deadline of the filing and when it needs to be done. Now, if this is something that you're going to do, you can just hit the little trash can at the right and it'll go away and it won't pop up again. Other to-do items is if you've chosen to use any type of a time tracking add-on for the program, you can click on here and go in and set up your employees so that they can enter their time online. And again, if you're not going to use that, then you just hit the trash can and it goes away and it doesn't pop up the next time you log in. It also reminds you when you have tax payments due if you're the one that are filing the tax payment yourself. So in this example, you can see that there's California personal income tax that's due that needs to be paid, and also your federal tax that needs to be paid. And in this example, they tell you the date of April 13th. And then at the bottom, they do let you know when your forms are due. So you can see in this example that the first quarter 941 is due, and also a California return is due. And also you can create new to-do items. So if there's something that you need to put on this list to remind you something about payroll, you can actually create a new to-do item so that it gets added to your list. Next. The Taxes and Forms tab. This is where you can also go in and pay any taxes that you have due. You just click on the Pay Taxes and it'll bring up all of the taxes from your payrolls that are due. So whether they're state or federal or local or anything like that, they'll all show up on that when you click that link. You can also edit your tax setup here. So for example, at the first of the year when your unemployment rate may change, you can go into the edit the tax setup and change your rate so that you've got the new rate going at the first of the year. You can view your payroll tax liability report from here. You can view any of the tax payments that you've made, and you can also view your prior tax history. So you can go click on that prior tax and go back in and see what your history is. And over to the right, this is where you can process your payroll forms. So you've got your quarterly forms, they're ready to print and mail, or if you file them electronically, you would click here. You can do your annual W-2 forms here. This is also where you can go in and set up your employee and contractor setup, and also your employer setup. If you happen to get employees in a new state or a different state, you can go in through your employer setup and fill out all of your applications and get that done. And over to the right, you actually can see any of your archived forms that you filed. So once you've been using this system for a while and you've filed your forms and filed your returns, you can click on those archived forms and it will bring up all of the returns that you filed in the past. Next slide. The payroll reports are pretty much the same as on the desktop version. However, they all look a lot different. So you have the paycheck details, the payroll summary, deductions, contractor details, tax and wages, workers' comp, vacation and sick leave, basically pretty much the same ones that you have on the desktop version, but I just wanted to give you an example of how different they really do look. And in the example I have here, this is the payroll summary. So when you click on the payroll summary, you can see how in the desktop version, the employees are listed by column and everything's listed, you know, down the columns, but in the online version, everything's done by row. So you have the employee name, and the next column is the net amount of the paycheck. So where the desktop version starts out with the gross, these reports actually start out with the net check, the hours they work, the total taxes withheld from the check, the total deductions. So there's not really any detail here, but you do get to see the total. And then the total pay is their gross wages. So this is where the gross comes in, and then you see your total of employer taxes. But the nice feature on this is that it just gives you exactly what the total cost is, including the wages and the employer taxes for each employee and for the whole payroll over to the right. So you can quickly see, you know, what your total payroll is for that pay period. Next. There are additional services that you can purchase from Intuit. They are not included in the basic, enhanced, or full service versions, and these would be additional fees. So if you're interested in any of these, they do include workers' compensation, labor law posters, employee time tracking, and there are a couple that I didn't list here, but basically there's also you know, there's apps that you can use and e-filing of 1099s. And I'm just going to cover quickly a couple of these. We'll go on to the workman's comp. The workman's comp, I think, is a really great feature that Intuit's offering with the online payroll. It's a pay-as-you-go type feature, so it frees up your cash flow, and so then you don't have any large down payment at the beginning of the policy, and it does a really good job of keeping track of the wages throughout the year for each pay period. So, you know, you're basically paying what's due on the wages instead of just going off of an estimate that you may have made at the beginning of the year. The premiums are automatically deducted from your checking account, and they're made each pay period, so you don't have to worry about writing checks or worrying about the premiums getting paid, because Intuit will just take care of all of that for you. You can also get your premium statements online so that you can have those available. And I think by doing this, doing your workman's comp this way, it does minimize the risk of a surprise bill at the end of the year, because like I said, it does keep track of your payroll on a payroll by payroll basis. So as it fluctuates throughout the year, and maybe it goes up and it's higher than you estimated, you know, you've already accounted for that by paying it through each payroll. And it also does minimize your audit activity. And then I'll cover a little bit on time tracking. This is another additional feature for Intuit. I know the desktop version has it built in, but this is an add-on that you can have. So there's two options available. There's the online timesheet, where an employee logs in and enters their hours into a password-protected timesheet. And there's also an online time clock, where employees can clock in and clock out online, and the hours are automatically calculated for them. And I think this is really important if you have employees that travel a lot or not in the office a lot. You can, then they can just log in from any internet connection and log in and log out, and it gets automatically imported into QuickBooks. It's fully integrated with both versions of QuickBooks. It's internet-based, and I think it saves time, you know, by avoiding duplication, and it also eliminates calculation errors when it just automatically gets pulled into the file. It can prevent employee abuse, and it also reduces compliance risks by automatically applying state and federal overtime and double time rules. And really, that's about all I have for the online payroll portion of the webinar, other than you can pay to have your 1099s e-filed, and they do have labor law posters available that you need. All businesses should post in their businesses. And that's it.
Thanks, Kim. Do either one of our panelists have anything they'd like to say as final thoughts?
I just wanted to say thanks, Kim. I don't use online payroll, so I'm pretty much in the dark about that. The time tracking piece is that is that somehow to do with T-sheets? Because I did read an article that T-sheets was, I don't know, selected or whatever is the time tracking program.
Well, there's a couple of them that you can actually use. I know that T-sheets is one of them. As a matter of fact, I was going to ask you if the time tracking was powered by T-sheets, but I think there's another one out there called Ability that you can, it's an app that you can add that will also import. I mean, you don't have to necessarily use this specific one, but there are other ones available where you can, import the time into the program.
Oh my God, I love that reminders screen.
Isn't that great?
In the desktop version, if you want reminders, you have to manually set them up, which really isn't that big of a deal, but you just get to stop and take the time. I think that would be a great enhancement to QuickBooks Desktop Payroll, but
yeah, I think the email feature is a really good feature as well, so that somebody doesn't get busy and forget to run the payroll, or misses the payroll in time and can't make the direct deposit and has to pay up to get the direct deposit made.
Yeah, or
same day.
Yeah, or things get out of hand, and the next thing you know, you forget to, submit a tax payment or file a return or whatever.
Right, and they give you plenty of emails. I mean, that you don't just get one. They start sending you emails about 3 or 4 days before you have to process your payroll. So there's no way you can forget. I mean, they just keep sending it to you until you run the payroll or pay make the tax deposits or file your returns. They pretty much don't let you forget.
Well, that's cool that they kind of hound you, per se.
Right. And they do it but once you do it, then the emails stop. So, it's a pretty slick system.
That's cool. The workers' comp feature is also available for QuickBooks Desktop, that pay-as-you-go, again, as an additional fee. But I don't know about you. I found that the workers' comp insurance provider, well, how do I nicely say this? Now there's no way. They don't really like contractors. Have you found that?
I don't really deal with contractors that much. I deal mostly with service-based businesses. So I don't really have much trouble with that.
Okay. I know there was, when the Hartford was providing the workers' comp insurance coverage, they pretty much said, we won't work with contractors, and it's because, well, let's face it, that construction has a really high rate of workers' comp claims. People are falling off roofs or whatever all the time. So I was wondering if, now that they've switched to the new provider, if it was still quite as icky.
That I couldn't tell you.
But for those of you joining in, I hope you realize that, payroll is complicated, to say the least. Paying your employees correctly and on time, and then making the government happy is absolutely crucial. So you really have to figure out what is best for you, what you need to have done, and make informed decisions. And I know that's a tough situation. I talk to people every day who say, I use QuickBooks for everything except payroll. I outsource it to, ADP or Paychex or whatever. I have no job costing. I'm having to take this report out of QuickBooks and then manually work up an Excel spreadsheet with job costing information for payroll and merge the two together. And oh my God, what a nightmare! Um, it's all very complicated, and you really gotta. You can learn. Um, in 1986, I had absolutely no clue about payroll other than I got a paycheck every week. And then I started a new job, and within 2-3 months, the woman who had always done the books and done payroll came to me and said, I'm going to teach you to do payroll because I really don't want to do it anymore. And I'm like, oh my God. I was scared stiff, but you can learn how to do payroll.
Well, and I think another important thing for businesses to consider out there is if you are using an outside service like payroll or ADP, look at your costs. Look and see what you're paying them every month, and then compare it to either the desktop assisted payroll or the full service payroll of QuickBooks Online, and just compare the differences in cost. And then you've got everything, and maybe the effort to make the change is beneficial for you because then, like you said, you've got all of the job costing, the class tracking, and the location, all there, and you don't have to manually enter it.
Yeah, and I know with assisted payroll, there's no set price. Otherwise, I would tell you what the set price is. It depends on how often you generate paychecks and how many employees you have. But they absolutely swear that they are more cost effective than either ADP or Paychex or some of your other big payroll companies out there. So, I mean, and in a time when every business is looking to save money, I mean, all of these things really are important.
I agree.
But the thing is, you don't want to hire somebody straight out of high school or straight out of college and thrust them into running payroll, especially if they've never done it. Getting everything set up and just doing the normal stuff. You can learn. I mean, it's not hard to learn how to enter hours and make sure that the pay rates are right and push a button to generate paychecks. But it is more complicated when you need to satisfy the government and, get on those stringent reporting requirements.
Right.
Ladies, I'd love to thank you for sharing your knowledge on payroll management. I hope it answered several questions for business owners out there. Again, we'll be sending everyone the questions and the panelists' answers at the conclusion of today's presentation. A link will also be sent to all the participants through SlideShare, and this presentation will be posted on both of the panelists' websites today. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks,
everyone.
Gary. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Nancy.